According to a new report, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still in the market to trade for a wide receiver too before the NFL trade deadline. Welcome in the Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we're going to be covering the very latest Steelers wide receiver trade rumors just days before the NFL trade deadline. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if the con artist strikes again, last night you trade for Kyle Duggar. Apparently, they're still in the market for a wide receiver, too. If something happens before the NFL trade deadline, we will have breaking news coverage. And if they trade for a wide receiver, we will be going live for that trade right here on the show, giving you guys extensive breaking news coverage. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and join the largest Steelers news program anywhere here on YouTube. So on Monday, we got to start with this. On Monday, we learned that Marquez Valdes-Scantling plans to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, okay, on the practice squad, okay? So that is the first thing that we need to kind of understand here about this situation, is that a lot of people already thought the Steelers made their move at wide receiver in MVS. Jeremy Fowler had the report on Monday saying free agent wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling plans to sign with the Steelers per source, reuniting with Aaron Rodgers from their Green Bay days. Shortly after that, Fowler clarified, saying that they're not signing immediately, but he is planning on signing with the team. Says most likely starting on practice squad. He's got 2025 guaranteed money from Seattle, and it's uncertain exactly when he'll start due to travel logistics, but the visit went well, and he'll sign with the team. However, yesterday during Mike Tomlin's weekly press conference, he was asked about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he said that there is no deal imminent with MVS. So it still sounds like MVS is going to sign with the team next week. Jordan Schultz had a report yesterday saying that he still plans on signing with the team next week, but obviously the deal has not been signed yet. So that's kind of a weird situation, kind of unfolding when it comes to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It still does sound like he's going to sign with the team's practice squad next week, but according to a new report this morning, the Pittsburgh Steelers may not be done just yet. We're going to be getting into the latest report here in just one moment here on Steelers talk about what it means for the wide receiver room, what it means for what the Steelers' plans are heading into the trade deadline, all that stuff, and then the price tag for the receivers that they are reportedly going after. But before we get into the rest of the Steelers wide receiver trade rumors today, go ahead and check out our link here, chatsports.com/PitSalute25 to get your hands on this limited edition Salute to Service Steelers hoodie. These are going to be running out at the end of the month. This is a limited edition piece. It's only for this year and only for this month. So make sure you go to chatsports.com/PitSalute25 before it's too late. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. And if you make a purchase, our sponsor is going to give us part of the proceeds of that purchase. So if you guys want to help out the channel and you want to get a limited edition Salute to Service Steelers hoodie, and I really like the design this year, guys. Not as much camo as some of the years past, and I'm a big fan of Army Green. So go to chatsports.com/PitSalute25 if you agree with me and you like this year's design and you want to get this limited edition Salute to Service Steelers hoodie. So according to a report from Steelers Now's Zachary Smith, he says, despite the pending addition of MVS, potentially to practice squad, the Steelers are still in the market for wide receiver help. They've been in constant communication with the Saints regarding Rashid Shaheed since the bye and have long been interested in Jakobi Meyers. Okay, so that is, certainly a big development here, that the Pittsburgh Steelers are still working the phones to potentially add a wide receiver 2 type before the NFL trade deadline. Ian Rappaport also said yesterday on the Insiders that the Steelers are still working the phones, saying the Pittsburgh Steelers, Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos, and other teams have made calls on wide receivers. Then when it comes to the New Orleans Saints and Rashid Shaheed, he says the New Orleans Saints are sitting on a collection of wide receivers, and I believe at least one will be dealt. If I had to bet, Rashid Shaheed interests most teams for his speed and talent. I think the Saints would be willing to part with Shaheed if the compensation is fair and right. And then in terms of the compensation and what the Saints consider fair and right at this point, according to Adam Schefter from ESPN, their price tag for Shaheed right now is a third-round pick. Now, obviously, that report probably indicates that that's the price tag that they'd be willing to move him for right now, but that price tag could certainly go down, and I would certainly say at this point, I can't imagine any team has actually offered the Saints a third-round pick for Shaheed. I'd probably say the most for him is probably a fourth or a fifth-round pick at this juncture. But then Jeremy Fowler from ESPN actually says that he thinks Jakobi Meyers will be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's definitely an interesting name to keep your eye on as well. This is what Jeremy Fowler had to say about the Steelers' interest and Meyers' availability. He says, teams I've talked to believe that Meyers has a decent chance to be dealt, possibly the best chance among available wide receivers. Las Vegas has received interest in the 7-year veteran, and my sense is the Raiders want a strong pick for Meyers. A swap of day 3 picks won't do at this stage. Several teams are believed to be in the receiver market, most notably the Steelers and possibly the Broncos and Bills. Pittsburgh is keeping tabs on this one, but is prepared to be patient too. If I had to predict a destination right now, I'd say the Steelers. So it certainly sounds like Omar Khan has his price tag that he's willing to go get Jakobi Meyers for, and it sounds like the Raiders aren't willing to trade Jakobi Meyers for that price tag at this point and are holding out for a better deal. But Fowler also says, like we said right there, that they want a third-round pick for Meyers, okay? And that's been the report that's been out there, that the Raiders want at least a day 2 pick for Jakobi Meyers. But I think with Meyers' age and the fact that he wants out of Las Vegas, and he's been very public about that, that drives down his price tag, in my opinion. And also the fact that, Meyers is not like a true number 1 guy. He's more of like a high-end number 2. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of interest in a 29-year-old kind of high-end number 2 for a day 2 draft pick. I think the Raiders are probably going to have to settle for a 4th or a 5th round pick, and then that's going to be the price tag, and that's probably where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at right now. Okay, I don't think the Steelers want to give up more than a 4th round pick for a wide receiver. I think they like the fact that they have 2 third-round picks right now, and they don't want to trade that third-round pick away. And I think especially with MVS, being slated to sign with this team next week, Omar is not necessarily, stressing to increase his offer. He's not feeling desperate to move that draft pick up from, like, say, a 5th to a 4th or a 4th to a 3rd. He has his price tag, and I think the Steelers have essentially let the Raiders know, hey, this is our offer. If you want to take it before the deadline, great. If not, we're not too worried about it, but it's up to you guys. And, if they end up passing and taking a better deal, I think the Steelers are probably pretty okay with what they have, but they would really like to add Jakobi Meyers because of the route running ability, because of the contested catch ability, the toughness that he brings to the table. And I think if Pittsburgh does add another receiver, my guess is that it will be for Jakobi Meyers for all those reasons that I just laid out. I think he actually adds something to the Steelers offense that they don't already have, which is somebody that is a bigger body route runner type of receiver that's got really, really good hands. He can be a great red zone threat as well. He's pretty good after the catch as well. You can put him in the slot. You can put him outside if you want. And, the Steelers don't really have that kind of player on their roster right now. DK Metcalf is a little bit of a limited route tree, even though he's a great vertical threat and yak threat. Calvin Austin III can run routes, but he's undersized. Roman Wilson is Roman Wilson. And, Jakobi Meyers with his kind of bigger frame and his route running skill set, his quick feet in route running and his, kind of technique in that regard would really add an element that the Pittsburgh Steelers just don't have in their wide receiver room, at least not to the level that Meyers brings it to the table. And honestly, I'm not super interested in Rashid Shaheed, especially for a 3rd-round pick. Now, I know Shaheed is a name that's very sexy out there, need for speed Shaheed, all that great stuff. He's a great deep threat, but the Steelers already have a bunch of deep threats, right? What they need is a route runner, and even though Shaheed is fast and can certainly go on crossers and all that different stuff, the Steelers already have that skill set in the building in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III. And, frankly, DK Metcalf also can take the top off the defense. And Shaheed, not really a route runner, not really like a short to intermediate type of threat outside of maybe some crossing routes. He's more of like a true deep threat. And the Steelers already have a ton of those. Not to mention they're planning on adding another one in Marquez Valdes-Scantling next week. So for me, if I have to choose between Jakobi Meyers or Rashid Shaheed, it's not even close. Jakobi Meyers adds more of a diverse skill set to this Steelers wide receiver room, whereas I think if you get Shaheed, you're adding kind of more of the same. And honestly, that's not worth a third-round pick to me. Plus, trading for a wide receiver 2 type and giving up draft capital to get that wide receiver 2 type would be very bad news if you want to see Roman Wilson get more playing time, not less, down the stretch. Because if you trade for Jakobi Meyers, if you trade for Rashid Shaheed, you're going to be delegating Roman Wilson to wide receiver 4 duties, okay? Because Calvin Austin III would be their slot receiver in that scenario. Okay, which means that Roman would essentially be benched until, another person gets injured down the stretch potentially, and that's the only time that he would ever have an opportunity for the rest of the season to play. Now, maybe that's what the Steelers want. Maybe the Steelers don't fully trust Roman Wilson to be a full-time starter for this team in a win-now season, and they want to give him, the rest of the season to develop and be a backup and all that stuff. But Roman's had some really good stuff here over the last 3 weeks, guys. He's had some nice catches. He got his first touchdown last week. He led the team in receiving versus the Green Bay Packers last week. Like, Roman Wilson, I think, is trending upwards, and, it'd kind of be a bummer if you, trade a draft pick to go get a veteran wide receiver just to put Roman Wilson, who's showing a lot of promise right now, on the bench. So I certainly think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have their price tag that they'd be willing to pay for a guy like Jakobi Meyers and Rashid Shaheed. And if those teams want to come to the table before the deadline, I'm sure they'll take those deals. But I also think because Roman Wilson has shown promise, because Marquez Valdes-Scantling is expected to sign with this team next week, the Steelers aren't feeling necessarily desperate to add a wide receiver, especially for a price tag that they don't want to pay. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. If the price tag to get Jakobi Meyers is a 4th-round pick next year, keep in mind the Steelers have numerous 4th-round picks in the 2026 NFL draft at this point because of the comp picks. Let me know what you guys would do. Would you take this trade? Type an A for accept or D for decline. Keep in mind, though, if you accept this trade, you are essentially benching Roman Wilson for the rest of the season unless there's an injury. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for our first Steelers Talk video of the day. We'll have another one come out later today talking about Kyle Duggar and what his role is expected to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll also talk a little bit about another sneaky signing that the Steelers made yesterday at the safety position that I think could be really nice in Derek Forrest, and then also talk about any other news that pops up for the rest of today. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.